Hi, I'm Michael Bay, director of Pearl Harbor, and this is Eric Brevig here, who was my second unit director and visual effects supervisor. So he thinks. No, he's a very fine supervisor from ILM. One of the reasons why I really wanted to work with him is his strong photographic background in terms of really making effects believable and photoreal. And that was our biggest challenge, to make these things photoreal in this movie. So we're here today, we're just going to talk about some of the shots that we're going to see on the screen. Would you like to add anything, Eric?
No, I think you said it all. I really wanted to work with Michael Bay because I've got this mortgage to pay.
Right, okay. We only knew that there were 12 existing planes in the world, Japanese planes, and the toughest thing was to make planes look, like I said, photoreal, and try to make the skin warp. See how the light, how it glints. These old planes, the metal is kind of banged up.
Well, as you say, the trick was not just to make a computer-generated plane, but to make one that actually could be put on screen next to real planes. It would have all the surface flaws, all the characteristics of real aged metal, photographed in the sun with camera lenses, all those nuances that you have a very good eye for picking up, and that was sort of raising the bar on what had been done to that level.
You know, growing up, we're all used to planes, how they fly, how something computerized just doesn't look real. We don't know why, but there's a gut feeling that says that doesn't feel real. So wouldn't you think there was a huge learning curve?
Yeah, like you say, the computer will give you an airplane that flies perfectly. But real footage, anytime we're shooting real planes, there are hundreds of little nuances about the way planes fly. They hit a little updraft, they hit a little gust, the pilot overcompensates. All these things are nuances about real plane flight that the animators don't know to put in until you really study that.
Now, besides our two little kid actors here in Hawaii, there are not a lot of kid actors in Hawaii, by the way. So if you're ever doing a movie there, just know that it's kind of hard to find good ones. Eric actually shot this shot. This is kind of where they shot, I think, some of Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
How many? There were about 6 planes, 5 or 6 planes that were coming through.
Real planes?
Yeah.
We had 2 real ones. Plus, I think you were hogging them all in
Yes,
first unit.
we were hogging them over in the harbor, and we would have radio transmissions where we need incoming inbound planes, and I'm like, I'm not done with my shot, so just give them 2 planes. I think I remember that. Now, in this shot here, what you're seeing right now, everything is real, and that was a real plane flying by there. We had the guys running where the planes would be lined up.
Yeah, I think you shot this with that Hershey. You must have.
I think you charged us too much for this shot, by the way, because this is a very simple shot.
It's the first plane that costs a lot.
We have a lot of fights about cost of shots. ILM occasionally will try to take advantage, and we fight, and they give us deals, and actually they were great to work with. But, I shouldn't say that. You should probably scratch that out of the tape, because they won't give me another deal for my next movie. Because I do know that when you spend $30 million with a company at ILM, they give you this special little gift. They give you this little, what you call that, a medal? It's a little Pearl Harbor medal.
Yeah.
You know I got that?
I got one of those too.
You did? $30 million they give you a medal. You guys, look, we can hang this on the wall here.
Mine says for working with Michael Bay.
Surviving, right? So right here is, they're showing you, I'm going to have Eric explain this.
Because we needed to build computer graphics planes that could break up when they hit something or they're blown out of the sky, they had to not only build the outside, they had to build stuff inside. So when the planes broke open, you'd see the inside pieces. That's what this is.
How many hundreds and hundreds and thousands of parts were there on that plane?
Oh, there's probably tens of thousands of.
That you guys built personally?
Yeah,
right?
and they don't have to build them one at a time. Once you make one, you can copy them.
And these are different breakpoints that you just saw the color mapping of?
Yeah, those are the pieces that are sort of pre-built to come apart.
Well, I guess my $30 million did go to make some of those pretty colored things on the planes.
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we kept trying to do was we watched a lot of car race crashes, plane crashes, to study how the mass of these parts break apart, rip apart in terms of speed, what happens to them. I remember early on in the process walking into one of the ILM computer operators. He sounded a little technical, it's almost like a physicist. And he was trying to show me this is exactly what would happen, but sometimes your eye, it doesn't feel right. So we would have to make certain adjustments. And I think the physicists from ILM were fighting me on that, but you always got to go with your eye and gut feeling on these things. So you guys did do some, compromise on this stuff.
Well, yeah, what we did is we did a simulation, and they always wouldn't work.
Eric had a private talk with him after
I'd say, dry your tears. He just wants his movie to be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, when things really explode, they don't go in the right place in the frame. So we'd always go in there, and the animators would manhandle all the pieces, so they would go usually right near the camera look the coolest. So that's where we aim things. It must have been weird for you though, because then you could direct the flying pieces of debris.
Well, it was. I mean, the thing that I always like to do is put the viewer inside the action and really make them a part of it, not necessarily see it all far away, but really kind of get you involved in it. One of the amazing things that ILM did is the computer-generated people. I mean, I think this is some of the more advanced stuff on this movie. So it actually looks kind of lame, but technically it's really... I mean, people out there are thinking, well, that doesn't look so special. But it's a truly complicated thing to do when you do so many of them. Mm-hmm. This is a shot that, as you know, I created in my office about 2 years ago. And
I did one just like it in my office.
You did.
2 years later.
Yes. I guess you copied what my early computer animation was.
Yeah, we distilled in the empty parts.
But here it is from a shot from a helicopter where they're taking pieces of the sky and they're going to do it at different levels. A helicopter can never drop to get that shot you just saw.
So this is taking some stills from the helicopter footage and just roughing in. We're trying to take the essence of the shot you gave us as an animatic.
So you can copy it.
So we can copy and take credit for it.
Right.
So,
you got to understand our relationship. It's actually, we do tease each other quite a bit. It's actually good on these type of jobs.
Well, you tease me a lot.
No, I do. And this is what I think it was on Roper, the Ebert and Roper show.
Uh-huh.
We're actually sitting quite like that right now. I think it was Roper that said that bombs don't fall like this. Actually, this bomb was specifically designed as a armor-penetrating bomb, and it was supposed to go nose first because they made it of hard, encased steel, so that it would puncture through and then it would explode.
So they do fall like this.
This bomb, in particular, yes, this was devised just for what it's doing right now. So I think actually that shot you just saw there, they threw out because it was so bad, and they created a 100% CG shot.
Yeah, because in the wide view, the ship was going to do something that you envisioned, which was almost bucking up out of the water. I thought it's a shame to start off with something that's that plain.
Right.
But
I mean, not that it was a bad shot. I'm actually joking right there. It's just that the CG world is now coming to a point where there are certain shots you can make 100% CG and still keep them photoreal. As a director, I always feel it's good to mix that real and fake, and not, I could never see doing a 100% CG movie because you always can't tell. But when you slip it in quickly, I think it can become very effective. I mean, this is an impossible shot to ever get in the real world.
Right.
So this is the Arizona shot blowing up in the water. We shot this in Hawaii, and I think they actually threw all of this out because you guys felt that this is one of the hardest, most complicated shots in the movie.
Yeah. It probably took 4 months nonstop to work on in post-production. And we shot that plate because I thought we needed people in the water to make it believable.
And you're still learning as a supervisor, you're trying to constantly say that you need things and you actually don't.
No, it's because editorially, this turned out to happen much
You have a
earlier.
good company backing you up. They got a lot of firepower and computers, and Thank God they saved your ass on this.
And we had a bunch of guys and some cameras. I thought we might as well shoot something. But as it turned out, there weren't any people in the water at this moment in the attack.
Right.
So we couldn't use that. So we had to make
The Arizona happened literally first 10 minutes of the bombing. One of the nice things that they added here was that blast wave, the shock wave coming towards us, which was that vapor spray. Right in there. And we did the hardest thing was to get that smoke to be dark enough and contrast enough. You know, a lot of conversations there.
A lot of discussions about smoke.
Kept saying wasn't good enough, wasn't good enough. And,
look at the smoke you sent us.
Yes, this was another shot that we did in my office, and we actually filmed this down in Texas on what is it, the USS?
Texas.
A long time
The
since.
Texas.
Yes, USS Texas. This is an Arizona class battleship. It was actually used. I think it was D-Day. It was used.
Was it?
Yeah, it was used on some of the beaches.
So this is the, I think it's a 6th scale miniature.
So that miniature is like, I think it's 15 feet tall.
Yeah.
They had to build such a huge miniature because to get this weight, this massive weight coming close towards us, to get that slowness to it, to feel like it's real. It's a real weight
scale
coming,
of it, yeah.
scale coming towards you.
There's some CG people in various places.
Yes, he has a computer animator named Huck, and his job is to place people around, and literally can place them anywhere, clinging onto anything. This is actually Battleship Row right now that we're flying down with a helicopter.
Yeah, we put little tiny floats in the water so the cameraman knew where the ships were going to go, because otherwise he didn't even, there's nothing there.
Right.
He didn't have anything to frame up on.
It was really helpful to have the helicopter pilot, the aerial director, to see the shots that we devised on our animatics and kind of do these flight paths right there. So they can look at the shot we have devised and figure out how they're going to fly their helicopter, how low they can get it.
Yeah, we took the animatics up into the aircraft, and we would show it to them. If we weren't getting it, we could look at it right there on the little camcorder, which was great.
One of the unique things about this, this explosion right there coming around, that was a real explosion we shot down in Mexico. Eric had shot that after we were there for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, we shot a bunch of
and I
explosions.
kept saying, God, that explosion looks so 3D. And it's because we were actually flying by a real explosion there, and then they added it. Here's one of the early shots we did in the animatics of one of the planes slapping down on top of the deck. Now this is a shot of the USS Texas. Stuntman's jumping right towards us. We were able to put up these live explosions. Here, this is a typical stuntman dying thing. Just take a look. This is what they do. They give you that little extra added touch. Right here, the guy in the white, boom, dead, and oh, yeah, there you go. But it was actually great to work on the USS Texas, to see the deep blue, just to get the tones of the deep blue here that we were able to put on a lot of the other ships. Because it photographs so dark, but it's also got a reflective sheen to it. So by being on one of the real ships, I would again give ILM more grief and saying, no, I remember shooting on the USS Texas, those sheens were... And there you go, some of the pieces breaking up. Now this part of the shot I think is amazing. I always had problems with the first part of the shot because I felt it was too CG right here. I think from the front of the prop where it doesn't have that gleam that's moving around on the cowling.
The plane coming in. Yeah.
But this here I think is phenomenal. I love the way the shards ripped up. There's the jagged pieces, and that was all from that huge amount of cutting up they did of the planes when they constructed these planes. Here we've got Josh and Ben diving in front of a real hangar right here. We couldn't really blow up the real hangar, so we built a model right there.
That was a camera shot on Josh's face. If you
Was it?
remember.
Yes, because
Right.
we're
Trying to
having
get the
some
eye
sun
thing.
problems. Tom Sizemore, we needed, he wanted me to finish the shot because it was his last day. Here's an aerial shot of.
Is of the tank in Baja.
Yeah. It's a wild shot. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I shot this with my camcorder.
I guess you must have had a lot of free time, didn't you?
Yeah, I was
Flying
like,
around. I didn't get to take a
I was
bunch
doing the
of
outside
cruise
work.
around around Baja. I was actually down there working.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
See, that's why your name is above the title. And mine's Wade. I was scouting our element shoot.
You were?
If you want to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this tank to shoot here was really an amazing place to work. The whole conception of the tank is really a brilliant idea. And then they worked through a lot of how to get around the tank by building this bridge system that you could literally, it's on floats, and two guys can kind of walk a bridge section that's a 15-foot by 15-foot section, and it's on floaties, and then they mount it with steel rods. It takes you about 10 minutes to make a bridge, to make a camera platform right out to wherever you want to shoot. This is one of those gigantic construction cranes you see in buildings. And we have a space cam thing in here where a guy is actually on the ground right back there by those tents. He's actually moving this crane, skillful crane operator actually, do these compound moves.
If you look at what we started with versus the end shot, I think you can really see what all the
We
waiting
worked
is
on this
about.
shot so long. How many months?
So about 4 months. And used every trick that we developed for the movie. We couldn't put any stunt guys on the ship because of the explosion.
We couldn't, because it was too dangerous of an explosion. But as you'll notice, here is a guy who's a digital guy.
That's
right
right.
there sliding in the front of the nose, who does that little backflip thing. I actually never liked that.
The guy who went
But I
through this-
figured we were running late, and the computer animator who did that guy, I guess, was quite fond of him. And
Oh, you remember what was there? The stuntman slid through uninterrupted, sort of like a happy guy on a slide.
yeah, you're right.
That's it.
So that was a computer animated guy.
Just at the end where he hits the...
And some of these guys are real stuntmen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably about 20 real stuntmen that have been cut out of other
Right.
pieces of
Other
film and
shots,
put
yeah.
in there. This was a shot that we had to basically create the world that we were working in through
Right.
stills.
Right.
And so I think David Knoll took some stills from a helicopter.
And they only had like a day and a half, I think, to shoot this part of the movie. I mean, this studying a lot of the combat stuff that we're able to dig up, just to see how things would rip and catch, the wing would catch and rip, and things would kind of go off kilter. What I like is getting visceral with the camera and shaking it and feeling like we're just missing that plane, and the audience is getting involved with that thing coming over us. It makes it much more believable.
Mm-hmm. More exciting. It's basically stuff you couldn't film for real and survive.
This took us a while to get right. Quite a while.
Quite a while.
The Battle of Britain was a lot tougher than...
It was. I think because we didn't really focus on it until near the end, and then we had to actually come up with something good. These are the guys building the models.
Oh, that
The
thing that
miniatures
we paid
for
so
Tokyo.
much for, right? Too much for.
I think it turned out to be a bargain by the
Yeah,
end,
you
as I
know,
recall.
it's like... I don't know if it was a bargain. This is towards the end of the production. Now, this section was shot in Vegas, and they kept getting rained out.
Yeah, we built this. We built all the models in Northern California at ILM, and because we needed really good weather, sent them to.
So notice they build these cute cars. They charge you probably a couple $100 per car, but when you watch the movie, you don't see them. Do you?
No, I think by then they'd been sent to all our other clients. I'm sure they're there. You just gotta look for them.
It wasn't a amazing model.
If you remember,
The reason why they build the scale and the model so big is just so these things can actually, you can build your scale of explosions to make it more real. Explosions you can only descale so much in terms of size.
so this was the custom camera rig that they built
Right.
for the shot. Because we had a really, really tight animatic of what the shot was supposed to look
Right.
like.
Now this is a bomber point of view.
So Jeff Herring, who was our physical effects supervisor at ILM, came up with this rig that's basically a pickup truck. Could precision motivate the camera on
I
the
guess
air
this
rig.
tape is actually just, I'm here today to show me, look at all the stuff you paid for and you never got to see.
Exactly.
Because it's the first
I
time
think
I'm ever
you-
seeing this stuff.
You were busy. I don't know what were you doing, some commercial or something?
No, I wasn't doing any commercials.
I think you were busy doing post-production on the
How many times
other
did they
3
do this?
hours. Once.
One time.
I don't know if you remember, but after seeing that, you said, well, I don't want you to do it again. I want some other shots. So we took those buildings and staged some other angles.
That's quite good. I just love the explosion interacting with us. We dug up some old combat footage of bombs exploding towards B-25s. It was amazing how close some of these explosions would get to the planes.
Yeah, a lot of fullers, there's a lot of black soot and stuff that had that black smoky image that you really wanted us to get.
So, Eric, you're unemployed right now, I understand.
Yeah, hard for me to get work after this.
Yeah. Because we're not going to be working together. Definitely not.
How much do I owe you?
One thing about ILM, I must say, they have a lot of funny people, and you need that on a movie of this size.
It's too bad they were all busy.
Anyway, thank you, and I hope some of that was informative.
I wouldn't know.
Did you? Yeah. All right. Okay, we can work together again.
Okay.
I'm sure we can. We can work something out.
Okay.
But you really are a pain in the ass. Director and visual effect.
ILM's work consisted primarily of the battle sequence and additional sequences, the battle over Britain and so forth. If you string all the shots that we did together, it was probably about 15 to 20 minutes. And between 200 and 300 effect shots were done here. Well, what made the work so challenging on Pearl Harbor was that we had the bar of realism right there for everyone to see in the live action footage, and our visual effects work had to blend seamlessly in with that. In many cases on screen, we have our computer graphics, planes and ships right next to real ones that are photographed, so there was no margin for us to cut corners. Our work had to look completely real. And as I've talked to people who've seen the work, it's surprising how many of them don't realize how much of the movie, especially the attack sequence, was visual effects sequences and were things that were absolutely impossible to film that we put in using visual effects later.
That's my second.
One of the most difficult sequences for us in the movie was the bombing of the Arizona. Michael Bay, from the very beginning, had a specific idea in his mind, and this animatic right here shows the idea of following the bomb from the airplane that dropped it all the way down to the Arizona. So with this animatic in mind, we set about figuring out how do we create this so that it looks like it's photographically real. First thing we did is we took a helicopter and we went to Pearl Harbor and filmed from the air what does Pearl Harbor look like today. Using this footage here as a basis to begin our work, we realized that the only way we could create the scene was to take stills from the live action, paint out everything that looks modern, and then create an environment in the computer where we'd see the background from Pearl Harbor, but the foreground, all the airplanes, all the ships would be rendered in the computer, and in the final shot, this would hopefully all look like it happened in the same place. Little by little, we began perfecting the animation and the choreography of the shot, working with Michael to bring the essence of his initial animatic to the screen, but to make it feel like it might be photographed from a real cameraman. And what that meant was figuring out, well, what is a cameraman? Is he in a parachute? Is he falling? Is he actually in another airplane? And finally, we came up with this look here, in which the cameraman has basically been tossed out of an airplane with his camera. He's falling with the bomb, although the bomb's falling faster, and it keeps the shot dynamic all the way through to the end. You can see from each successive iteration that the details are being enhanced, such details as the dirt and oil on the bomb, the smoke that's in the air, the look of the ship, the look of the ocean texture are all being refined step by step as the shot is approaching completion. Here in the final composite, you can see that we've filled in the background completely. We've got smoke clouds in the air that we're diving through with our camera. The ocean is complete with torpedo blasts and explosions. The deck of the ship is now complete, and there are running sailors on the Arizona as the bomb plummets towards the deck. The wide shot of the Arizona blowing up, I suggested to Michael that we might want to have a different angle where we see the people on the ship's deck as the bomb is starting to blow up. He liked the idea, and so we filmed this piece of action in the Mexico. Unfortunately, I felt that the ship, because this is a real ship, wasn't doing anything that was as dynamic as what we would create with our computer graphics ship for the wide shot. So I suggested to Michael, why don't we take that same piece of animation of the ship, let's put our camera very close to it, and we'll synthetically create this view. He liked the idea, but it was very difficult to consider the idea of putting a computer-generated ship this close to camera. It took a lot of work in perfecting the look of the surfaces, the animation. What does something of this size do when it blows up? Do the boards shatter? Do they break in big cracks? We tried lots of different variations to come up with something that was both visually interesting and semi-plausible. Eventually we came up with this kind of an approach where the ship just literally bulges and it launches the chains and so forth into the air. The next step was to populate the scene. So here you can see we've got some computer graphics people running away from camera, but I wanted to get real people in the foreground because I felt that that was important, that we get the sense that they are, in fact, real humans on this deck as this event is happening. So we got some stunt people, dressed them up, and filmed them on some green screens, and took those elements, reduced them down, and stuck them on the ship. That one's me. You can see I got the pad to fall down. The ship was then covered with dots so that the compositing people could see exactly how to track the green screen actors onto the scene, and then they were placed into the shot. One final piece of dynamic simulation was required so that the chains and so forth could move appropriately as the ship was buckling, and then all these things are put into the shot, and this is the scene as it appeared in the movie. For the wide shot of the Arizona blowing up, I wanted to begin with a live-action piece of film where we could see actual sailors in the water, which would help give the shot's scale, as well as have something other than computer graphics images to look at. So we filmed these sailors in the water in Hawaii reacting to a big explosion in the distance. We then started to research what would a ship blowing up of this size look like. Now, Michael Bay had a specific image in his mind that he had seen of a test in which an Australian ship was actually torpedoed and it blew up, and it leapt up out of the water. And while the Arizona didn't do that on the day, it was visually a more exciting and dramatic event. So we decided to try and incorporate that into our animation. So you can see various tests of explosions, of bending the ship, of the pyro, of the smoke, and so forth being tested. Unfortunately for me, around this time we realized that there couldn't be anybody in the water because editorially this shot was now happening at the beginning of the sequence before people had been thrown into the water. So we were forced into the worst possible situation, a fully synthetic shot on screen. All computer graphics, no live action, so it had to look real. These are various tests in terms of developing the look of not only the explosion, but the splashes, the hanging mist in the air after the explosion happens, the disturbance of the water. All these things that we're all very familiar with have to look real. You can also see that we've also had to animate the things on the ship, the lifeboats, the various pieces of the ship, all as they're being knocked about by the explosion, as well as here we've got a concussive wave, shock wave coming off of the explosion, disrupting the water. And here's the final shot as it appeared in the movie. You can see that it's got computer graphic sailors on the deck being thrown about, computer-generated smoke, fire, water effects, and so forth, all there on the screen. One of the next shots you see in the movie is where a tower from one ship falls over onto another ship. This is the animatic that Michael Bay gave us early in the show. He said, this is the kind of thing I want to see. So we set about figuring out how to make it happen for real. The first thing we did was we went to the USS Texas, which is a correct period ship which is permanently moored in Houston, and we filmed this live action scene of a lot of stunt people. They're jumping into boxes and various safety pads that you can't see on the screen. The next step was to back at ILM, create a miniature explosion and a miniature of the tower which was falling over, which we would film with a camera that would slow down the action and exactly match the same perspective that we shot the real sailors on the USS Texas from. Michael Lynch, who's our model supervisor in Pearl Harbor, supervised the construction of an 18-foot tall model which would exactly duplicate the piece of the ship that we filmed on the USS Texas, as well as a neighboring tower which would fall over and hit it. Here you can see the camera's point of view of this event. The next step was for us to populate the miniature with computer graphics people who would be crushed, falling, leaping, doing all the things that stuntmen couldn't do for safety reasons, just to make the ships feel like this in fact was two very populated ships at this point in the movie. And then when those two elements are put together, this is the final shot as you see it in the movie. Now Michael Bay was very insistent that we put people everywhere, and you can see in this special super slow motion version, there are people that run across onto the stairs, there's somebody hanging out of the window on the falling tower, and I hope when you're watching this on your DVD, you go frame by frame through this shot, because Michael Bay will be very happy. Probably the most difficult sequence in the film for us was the attack sequence, and the most difficult shots in those sequences were having to create all of Battleship Row under attack out of basically an empty harbor. The way we approached this was we knew from our pre-visualization animatics what it is that Michael wanted us to create for the film. And then we flew a helicopter over the correct part of the harbor, putting little buoys in the water which would designate the front and back of the imaginary ships, which aren't there but that we would have to put in. Once the live action was tracked, we then started to put the different elements into the shot which would be needed. Primarily the ships with interactive lighting for the various explosions, the attack planes, elements such as smoke. Here you see volumetric haze, which is computed to fill in the spaces in the air that the planes are flying through. Tracers, which are coming from the airplanes. Huge plumes of smoke, which were generated in the computer because it isn't possible to physically create smoke plumes of this size. Environmentally, you cannot do it in the United States. It's unsafe, it's unhealthy, and the only solution was to write a special piece of software which would create this volume of smoke in the computer. We eventually had to replace the ocean too because the look on the day, the weather was a little gloomy, and Michael felt that it should be a more Hawaii look, sunny and so forth. So by the end of it, we had very little left of our original live action that you can see in the final shot. 200 elements have been put in the shot, all of them generated in the computer, and the final shot is in fact what we set out to do. This is a shot that Michael Bay originally came up with in which the plane is crashing and a sailor is running out of the way. To bring this to the screen, initially I shot on the USS Texas a series of fire explosions with a stuntman running just aside of him and him landing on a very soft and comfortable mattress. The next step is for us to put in the CG airplane. Scott Benza, our animation supervisor, animated the plane in a way that it looked like it was in fact causing these explosions as it rolled across the deck. Once the initial path was figured out, we then used computer dynamic simulations to accurately determine what a tumbling plane would look like when it hit the deck. You can see here what that simulation looks like, which shows us what the real plane would do. We take that as the basis for our animation, but then frame by frame we can control the pieces to make the shot more visually interesting. In this shot you can also see the pieces of the insides of the planes which were modeled so that as the plane rips open, tumbles across the deck, different pieces are shown which are supposedly the insides of the planes, the torn edges, all those things that have to be done in the computer. And this is the final shot in which you can see we've added gunfire, background planes, the ship in the background, and all the various pieces of business that Michael Bay felt was very important to keep the shot alive, to keep the war going in the background.
In front of a real hangar.
For this scene, we wanted to tie in Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett as they're running away from Hangar 54 just as it explodes. So I filmed Ben and Josh running away from the hangar, and we did a very small physical effects explosion, just enough for the actors to react to. The next step was, in post-production, back at ILM, we built an exact miniature of the hangar and filmed it from the same point of view. Ed Hirsch took the miniature that was supervised by Michael Lynch out behind the building, and on a rare sunny day here in Northern California, filmed it exploding. This element was then put behind the actors who were carefully traced out of the original scene, and in the final composite you see Ben and Josh with the miniature exploding in the background, camera shaking everything out of him. Yeah, I shot this.
This is a shot of the big set tank in Baja, in Mexico, where the production directed a bunch of big set pieces, including an amazing rolling section of the Oklahoma, the front section of the Oklahoma. You can see it here on the top right of the tank area. John Fraser's practical effects crew made this elaborate and amazing rig that could at will just roll this whole, I think it was like a 120-foot section of the ship over. This is the original photography that Eric Brevig supervised down on the set, and you can see that we've got sailors in the water, but we haven't got any sailors on the ship in this case because there's an explosion going off, and it was sort of dangerous to have the sailors riding on the set at that time. So we're going to extend the ship and add planes and filling in most of the Oklahoma with our computer graphics. To help show how the boat breaks apart as it capsizes, we used physically based animation software that we wrote here at ILM and that the animators used to help things like this tower collapsing. You can see some of the water that the tower hits up as it falls into the harbour. Here is a render of the part of the ship that we're adding in computer graphics, and we also added the splashes that the tower created that you saw the rough version of earlier. And we created this using a special rendering tool that we developed here at ILM. We've got a water simulator here at ILM, and we did some new work on that for Pearl Harbor to allow us to run these torpedo wakes through and add explosions into the water. We also had to add the sailors, and we'd originally shot some sailors down on set and tracks those in. Susan Weeks Composite did a great job of tracking and morphing those into the plate, as you can see in this test. And we also added CG sailors that were animated by Scott Wertz's team and rendered into the scene. You can see them being affected by the explosion here at the end a little bit as it starts. When we've added all the smokes and the computer graphics and the planes flying overhead and torpedoes and the people in the water, you really get a sense of the scale of what was happening in Pearl Harbor and the chaos that was surrounding these sailors as the ship overturned. So now I'm going to talk about the Battle of Britain, and there were about 4 Spitfires and 1 Messerschmitt in the real photography. So we ended up building a computer graphics version of each of the planes. Here's the Messerschmitt. We'd taken photographs of the real ones they used in the photography, and then we had to build in computer graphics a version of the Henkel, which is the German bomber, that we weren't able to find a working version of that plane. So that's only generated in computer graphics. We use those planes to enhance things like the original photography you see here of the Spitfires flying over Dover, and so that we could make 4 planes appear like a squadron of planes. For a lot of the shots in the battle over Britain, we wanted the freedom to move the camera wherever we could. So we went out and shot a lot of still photographs of the area around Dover, and using some of the great aerial photography that the unit brought back, we were able to use computer techniques to create models of Dover and create a virtual version of the cliffs of Dover. Here's an animatic of one of the shots we used that for, where you can see the plane breaking apart. Here we've added some additional debris and smoke coming off, and here you can see an early version of our CG smoke that we're going to be adding pouring out of the plane. When we combine that with our virtual cliffs of Dover environment, we get the finished shot that you see here. Fully computer generated, but believable recreation of this event in the Battle over Britain. In this shot, we wanted to actually change some of the original photography of Dover, and so we used our virtual world again, and then combined in our computer-generated Spitfires and our German Henkel bomber and Messerschmitts to create the final version of this attack.
Although we did a lot of computer graphics, old battleships and airplanes with computer graphics, there was a lot of miniature work that we needed to do when things needed to blow up or crash into each other, and we felt that we needed that sort of realism of an actual physics working. So what you're looking at right here is some of behind-the-scenes footage of our miniature Tokyo that we built in Jean, Nevada. We had to try to find a location that we thought would give us better weather than we would get to photograph our miniature than here in San Rafael. So we picked a place down in southern Nevada where we thought the weather would be fine. It turned out not to be so great. We had a lot of very high winds, and one day it actually snowed on us. The miniature was about 70 feet across, about 100 feet long. And the shot was that we were basically an aerial perspective where we were flying over this miniature looking down at it. And you can get a sense here from the sort of the size of some of the buildings that we were dealing with. These were 8-scale buildings, so they were anywhere from 5 feet tall to 10 or 15 feet tall. This is a sort of a fairly good overview of the entire set. And you can see the size of the people relative to the buildings. And we had all the appropriate sort of details to give us the sense that we were really over an industrial area. So we have railroad tracks and railroad trains and telephone poles and all the wires and all the other sort of equipment that would be necessary. Here you can see part of the camera rig that we were using. We were using a high-speed VistaVision camera because we wanted to shoot about 72 FPS. And here's the camera on the aerial wire rig. And it was motivated by a pickup truck. So as the pickup truck drove one way down the track, the camera flew the opposite way. And all the explosions could then be cued to the position of the pickup truck. So we could actually put switches on the ground, and as the pickup truck went by, it tripped the switches, which caused the explosions to go off. So we could get the explosions exactly in the right place in the frame where the camera was looking. You can sort of see this building right here in the foreground was constructed in such a way that as the explosion went off, we could the whole roof would sort of lift off. It was a sort of a balancing act to try to get explosions that had some character to them. So Michael didn't want just fireballs. He wanted some debris and somewhat of a dirty look to the explosions. So there's mortars that make the fire, and then there's mortars that are actually throwing large amounts of, as you can see, sort of the dirty black explosion, which was potting soil and different dyes to make it dark. So this is the actual shot, filmed from the camera at 72 frames per second. When the film is then played back at normal projection speed, the event will take 3 times longer to happen, because that's 3 times normal speed, and it'll give it some sense of it being a huge explosion. So this gives you some idea of how big the miniature had to be and the amount of detail that we needed in it so that it would cut with and be compatible with real footage of a steel plant that we photographed from a helicopter. The next task was to stick airplanes in it. So this is just sort of a first pass at looking at how big the airplanes would be, what flight path they would take, and where they are relative to camera. This is the final shot as appears in the movie with photoreal airplanes. The airplanes are casting shadows on the ground. There's computer graphic people running around down on the roadway. And as we play the shot, you can see then we had to add other little bits of pyro debris sort of flying up towards the camera to try to make the shot more dynamic. And it's always sort of anticlimactic. You sort of set this whole thing up for days and days and days, and finally you have to stand there and wait till the weather is just right. The sun comes out, you say go, and the whole thing happens in like a second. And you've been there for weeks setting it up.